That moment when you go into a Northern Ireland bar and are immediately accused of being a bad person because you're from the United States. Doesn't feel very good. Culture shock, I guess. But we're staying in this cute little coastal town, and we went to just enjoy a beer, and we're like, we don't want to talk about anything or anything like that, and it just ended up with me in tears. So, if you're an American citizen, maybe just proceed with caution.
Oh no! Did you visit another country and they treated you based on where you're from and not who you are as a person? As a human? Now you know how it feels to travel to America.
Accused of being a bad person because you're from the United States.
It doesn't surprise me, but it still blows my mind how Americans, specifically MAGA Americans, travel around the world without doing any historical research, any political research. And they just assume that everyone's just so excited for them to be there.
Is it safe to travel as an American right now because the rest of the world hates us? Did you see the video of the American woman in Ireland? This one.
That moment when you go into a Northern Ireland bar and are immediately accused of being a bad person because you're from the United States.
Now, she goes on to say that the bartender recognized she had an American accent and then asked, oh, you're from America, who'd you vote for? And here's the thing, okay? The Americans need to understand the rest of the world does not like Trump. Okay, Trump is actually, and this regime is doing a lot of damage across the world. We're the bullies, all right? So as long as because I've traveled quite a bit since the Cheeto's been back in office, and every time somebody asks, are you American? I'm like, yeah, I'm so sorry. You just apologize for it. And then they're like, oh my God, I feel so bad for you. That's pity is usually the sentiment you get. They don't hate you unless you're like, oh yeah, no, I voted for this. I'm really excited that this is happening. This is what I support. Then yeah, you are a bad person. And yeah, they're going to not like you. You're probably not going to be welcome. So if you're worried about traveling abroad and because of Trump and you're American, just as long as you're a good person, didn't vote for him, just tell people that and everyone will be very kind to you. But nobody likes Trump. And I know that the right really thinks that the world loves Trump too, they do. And no, it's just this little cult that they have.
There's this video going around of this lady and the title is left in tears in Northern Ireland. And in the video, she's like, I went to this bar in Northern Ireland and I was immediately accused of being a bad person. So if you're from the United States, proceed with caution, acting like everyone from the United States is going to have this issue. But here's her story time on it.
Story time of why I felt uncomfortable and unwelcomed in the north of Ireland. I walked in with my husband to the central bar, and I immediately noticed that they had the world news on, rightfully so. There's a lot of crazy things going on in this world. And sure, they want to watch it. I'm a visitor in your country. That is completely your prerogative. You can watch or do what you want. That's fine. I genuinely mean that.
So you think it's reasonable for people to care about what's going on in the world? You agree that's a reasonable thing to do?
The woman behind the bar was so kind. She was very nice, gave us our pints, what have you. Then the gentleman said, are you American? And I said, yes, we're American. And I'm not lying to you when I say it instantly went from, yes, I'm American to, well, who'd you vote for? And I kind of was just shocked. I'm like, wow, that was very direct.
Immediately that tells everyone who you voted for. Why would you be shocked by that? Nobody who didn't vote for this would be shocked by that question.
And I said, we're on vacation. We're trying to get away from all of that. We don't really want to talk about it. And I did not know that automatically meant, oh, you're a MAGA crazy Nazi that blah, 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 blah. I've been reading in my comments.
I do not know what is so hard to grasp about this, but it's a recurring thing where they're like, well, I didn't say who I voted for. How do you know who I voted for? Because the people who didn't vote the way that you did are not ashamed about it. You guys are the only ones who are ashamed about it. It's not confusing. And yes, her reposts confirm she did in fact vote for it. I don't know why they always try this line as if it's difficult to put two and two together.
MAGA supporters don't realize that people around the world are dealing with the consequences of their own decisions. And people around the world, they feel that they voted against other people's human rights. Look at what happened in Gaza, the painful deportations, tariffs. Now look at the war in Iran, causing high gas prices. So people feel that Donald Trump is causing a lot of damages in the whole world and that they don't like it when they are being held accountable, you know?
See the video of the American woman crying because she went to a pub in Northern Ireland and felt so unwelcomed. People were judging her for being American, so if you're American, be warned. I'm sorry, but that reaction tells me that you did absolutely zero research before going to that country. Northern Ireland is one of the most politically complex places in the Western Hemisphere. The people there have lived through decades of violence during their troubles. Politics isn't just some abstract thing that you argue about online, behind a screen, where you can hide. It determined where you lived, what school you went to, and what neighborhood you could safely walk through. So yes, people talk about politics in pubs. A lot. A pub is not just a bar. It is a community space. It's where you watch the news, you debate, argue, and process what's happening in the world. And when you're from a country where your regime is actively destroying things, you don't participate in a local discourse because you're on vacation, we don't want to talk about it. That's privilege. Not only is it privilege, but it literally shows everyone else who you really are at your core. It has nothing to do with a cultural misunderstanding. Cultural misunderstandings are normal and happen quite frequently when you travel, and people are accustomed to that and accommodating. And the Irish and the Scottish, I have to put them in there, even though this isn't Scotland, are the nicest, most genuine people I have ever met in my entire life. There's absolutely no way that this woman's victimized interpretation of what happened is what actually went down. She framed it like, oh, I walked into a place with a really strong political culture and they attacked me for being American. No. Being American has nothing to do with it. It's the type of American that you are. It's the privileged type. The type that assumes that every room you walk into, every environment that you encounter will cater to your comfort. And that's not possible when you travel. You cannot expect that every culture will bend to you. The expectation is that you learn about where you're going before you go there. Not just the scenery, not just how beautiful it is and how it's a quaint little seaside town, but the history, the politics, what it's like when you walk into a pub and you adjust accordingly, especially somewhere with a history like Northern Ireland. Because walking into a pub in Northern Ireland and being surprised that people are discussing politics and world events is like walking into a sports bar in the US during the Super Bowl and being surprised that people are watching football. Get over yourself.
Hi everyone, I went to Northern Ireland for the first time recently as an American, and I had an amazing time and was welcomed so warmly once everyone found out that I had voted for Kamala. So one night I went to a pub and me and my friends were just hanging out, and this guy, one of the locals, came up to us and said, oh, are you guys American? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, who did you vote for? And I said, well, Kamala. And everyone in the pub started cheering, clapping, started applauding. Everyone started buying us drinks. And we really felt like we were part of the community that night. The next day, we woke up and people had left gift baskets outside our hotel room. And as we were walking through the town the next day, everyone was waving at us, trying to give us stuff. It was just probably the warmest welcome I've ever received in any country. And so if you're an American traveling to Northern Ireland who voted for Kamala, I would say you're going to have an amazing time and you'll be embraced with open arms. I will say, though, that I had another friend who went to Northern Ireland on a separate trip and said that he had voted for Trump, and we had never heard from him since. So I don't know what that was about.
Accused of being a bad person because you're from the United States.
It doesn't surprise me, but it still blows my mind how Americans, specifically MAGA Americans, travel around the world without doing any historical research, any political research. And they just assume that everyone's just like so excited for them to be there. Like, girl, unless you were in a like specifically unionist, anti-immigration, hateful little pocket of Northern Ireland, like maybe like somewhere small in East Belfast, they're not gonna like a Trump supporter. I feel like that's common knowledge. I went to Ireland last year, said my vows there, and without fail, anytime that we talked to an Irish person, and mind you, we weren't in the north, they'd ask us. They'd kind of get a bit closed off and ask us where we're from. And then when we'd say Canada, they would just breathe a sigh of relief and be like, fuck that Trump guy, I'm so sorry that you're dealing with that. And most Americans, because we were in like the height of the annexation conversation, with Trump threatening us, most Americans would apologize to us immediately. Like if we were on a tour or something like that, and we're going around saying where we're from, and we'd say Canada, and the next person would be like, oh, America, we're so sorry. And then the tensions are amongst the group of people or the room that we were in would sort of settle. But it didn't always happen. There were times when we'd say we're from Canada, and the next person would be like, we're from Texas, we're from the United States, and they didn't say anything. And then everybody in the room, Irish people included, would be like, that's awkward. Like, you're not going to say anything about it. You're fine with that. You're fine with invading their country. And you're really in the comments being like, trying to act like you didn't vote for Donald Trump. And then posting shit like this, and then traveling to Northern Ireland is insane. You have to realize that that's crazy.
That thing about the American woman who came to a pub in Cushendall and was met with hostility when she refused to discuss who she voted for in the American election, I find it really interesting. Because that woman and a lot of Americans, I think, have this idea that they're entitled to travel and not be met with these political discussions because they're irrelevant or it's rude to discuss them. But what they don't appreciate is that people in Europe, people in Ireland, for instance, have to deal with the direct consequences of the American election, but they don't get a vote. So when you travel outside your borders, you go to a place like Ireland and you meet people who didn't have a say, but are having to deal with the consequences of things like tariffs, things like Palestine, the Russia-Ukraine war, and sort of oil prices because of Iran, and even not being able to fly across the Middle East currently. All of these chaotic things that could have been avoided. I think we're going to see it more and more, that American tourists, when they travel outside of the US, are going to have to reckon with it a lot more than they used to, because the politics really affect everyone, not just them, and they're kind of going to be held to account a bit.
What you're witnessing right now goes beyond travel experiences or awkward moments abroad. It's much deeper. It's about perception, consequences, and the way decisions made in another country can ripple across the entire world. For many Americans, especially supporters of Donald Trump, politics has often been viewed as a domestic issue, something that affects jobs, taxes, and everyday life within the United States. But the reality is US policies don't stop at its borders. They shape economies, influence global reactions, and impact how people in other countries experience their own lives. Some travelers are now realizing that outside the US, people have been watching closely. They have seen policy decisions, heard rhetoric, or experienced the effects directly or indirectly. For them, these aren't just headlines. These are real-life consequences that have shaped how they view America, and by extension, some of the people who support those policies. So when certain travelers arrive expecting neutrality or even friendliness, they are sometimes met with something else entirely: distance, discomfort, or even frustration. And for those experiencing it, it can feel shocking because from their own perspective, they made choices they believe were the best for the country, their economy, and their families. But around the world, many people view political decisions through a different lens. Some people see them impacting human rights, immigration, international cooperation, or global stability. And when those issues are personal, when they affect families, livelihoods, or entire communities, people don't just forget. They carry those feelings with them. This is why reactions abroad can feel so strong. It's not always about the individual traveler standing in front of them. It's about what that traveler represents in that moment. Fair or unfair, right or wrong, those perceptions exist and they shape interactions. And that's why accountability becomes part of the conversations. Policies supported in one country can create consequences for people thousands of miles away. The world today is more interconnected than ever before. Economies are linked, cultures overlapped, and for some, this realization is uncomfortable. So decisions made in powerful nations like the United States often have global reach, influencing everything from migration patterns to international relations. So thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Have a good one. I'll see you in the next video.